Hello and welcome to the Football Fan Fanatics Podcast. I'm James Palin and joining me is my mum Nadine Dereza. We had a few days off last week and we're back, although football never truly sleeps, with the Scottish Premiership and the English Football League's Carabao Cup in full swing. In today's episode, we're diving into 5 major stories for you, making headlines across world football. Gianni Infantino remaining as FIFA president despite mounting pressure. More, Bruno Guimaraes joining Arsenal from Newcastle for £75 million. We've also got Vinicius Jr. committing his future to Real Madrid with a new contract. And Mohamed Salah's shock move to Turkey. Finally, we'll end the show on talking about the consortium acquiring a stake in Liverpool, which includes Amazon's founder, Jeff Bezos. Let's start the programme with the biggest governance story in football right now. Infantino staying put at FIFA despite a clear lack of confidence from 3 of the largest confederations in football. So, Nadine, welcome to you again. Hello. UEFA, CONCACAF and the Asian Football Confederation have made their frustrations with FIFA very public recently. Yet, Gianni Infantino still remains firmly in position. What's going on here?
Yeah, well, it's a fascinating power struggle, which we've spoken about before, haven't we, on the last episode. And we discussed also how UEFA have been increasingly vocal about their lack of trust in Infantino's leadership, especially after the recent disputes over competition structures and governance decisions, to put it mildly. Let's not forget that Infantino has spent years building strong relationships with federations outside of Europe, notably in Africa, Asia and South America. And those alliances have been reinforced through funding programmes and expanded tournaments, which has made his position more secure than UEFA, who are the Union of European Football Association, might have actually liked. But now the story's moved on because 2 big regional confederations, CONCACAF, as you've mentioned, and the Asian Football Confederation have joined forces and have basically turned on FIFA president Gianni Infantino. So when UEFA's 55 members were aligned against him, that alone wasn't enough to remove him or block his influence with a one-vote system, you might remember, across FIFA's 211 members associations in total. But now that you've got 3 of FIFA's biggest regional confederations, I mean, that changes everything, with enough votes now to make a real difference. Although there are still a few countries that have come out publicly backing the FIFA president. No surprise, they're Argentina, Morocco, Egypt, DR Congo and Qatar, and there are a few others there as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting about Argentina, but just for a bit of context for our viewers and listeners, this all goes back to a plan called the FIFA Forward Enterprise, or FFE for short. The idea was to spin off a new company to handle commercial and ticketing rights for all FIFA competitions, including the World Cup, and then sell a 21% stake to a private investment firm. And Nadine, that didn't go down well, did it?
No, not at all. I mean, it got scrapped pretty quickly after heavy pushback led by UEFA, which had threatened to boycott FIFA competitions entirely and also floated the possibility of legal action. However, just because FIFA have backed down on the FIFA Forward Enterprise proposal, the 3 confederations are still not happy, and they put out recently a joint open letter signed by the presidents and also the general secretaries of all 3 bodies. So 6 signatures were listed on the letters, and the language in the letter is pretty blunt because they accuse Infantino, without ever naming him directly, although you can read between the lines, of breaking trust through deception, and say a leader who puts himself above the people who gave him authority has abandoned his duty. And the letter, I suppose, is meant as a nudge or a push for him to resign gracefully, I suppose. But I don't know if there's going to be any grace in it now. Maybe it's
yeah, but their letter goes further than just accusing him of a bad process. They say FIFA admitting to some mistakes in how the FFE process played out isn't enough. So in their view, the problem wasn't procedural at all. Attempting to sell a stake in the World Cup itself was, in their words, a serious lapse in judgment and a real breach of trust with the institutions FIFA is supposed to serve. So, Mum, how have FIFA responded?
Yeah, you're right, actually. Just on that, I've got the letter here, the open letter to the football family, and you're right. I mean, it makes it very clear, the position as you've just stated. But in terms of how FIFA have responded, my goodness, I mean, they are just in a league of their own, aren't they? I mean, as I told you before, they operate as like a country in itself, having it's sort of like a banana republic. And they pushed back hard last weekend, releasing a statement accusing critics of a coordinated campaign to undermine the organisation and Infantino personally. It's like they just don't seem to get it. And FIFA has also promised a report at the next council meeting, which is expected in October. But the three confederations have said, well, that's not good enough. They're calling for a fully independent third party to review what happened. And, you know, they just have no faith in an internal FIFA process. And, you know, I completely agree with that, actually. Anybody that looks to their own selves to be accountable are missing a trick. They definitely need that independent third party to review what's happened here.
Yeah, the bit I really couldn't comprehend was the talk of a breakaway from FIFA. There have been early informal conversations among the three confederations about breakaway competitions if Infantino stays in power, but nothing substantive has started yet. But that really doesn't look good at all, and it's worth noting support isn't unanimous. Mexico has publicly backed Infantino, while the rest of CONCACAF, so the US, Canada, the Caribbean and Central American football unions, say they're standing behind the letter's call for reform. In Asia, 8 of the AFC's 46 member countries, including the UAE, Qatar and Kuwait, I don't know if I've pronounced that correctly, I don't think you'll know even, Nadine.
Yeah, I
do! They've come out in Infantino's favour, so I guess my question is there a deadline for all this UEFA boycott talk?
Yeah, I suppose the first test comes in about 3 weeks, or actually just under now, when the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup kicks off in Poland, and that features several European teams, the clues in the title, including England. But interestingly, France has already confirmed that they still plan to compete, which kind of undermines UEFA's broader position in a way. So I don't know whether France are just sort of saying yes at the moment and may change their mind. Who knows? But it's kind of like united you stand. Having division isn't great, but I suppose it's 3 weeks' time and there's been a lot of preparation so far. So I have some sympathy for France there.
Yeah, I'll tell you something else, Nadine, that undermines UEFA's broader position, and it's that President of the United States that just keeps propping up. And it gets really interesting with Donald Trump. We know he's a man that likes to take to social media, to Twitter or X now.
Or his own social, Truth Social.
Truth Social. And he posted recently on social media that it would be a massive mistake for FIFA to replace Infantino, praising him for overseeing what Trump called the most successful World Cup ever. But let's remind everyone of the personal connection between these two. The investment firm that was set to lead the FFE deal, Thrive Eternal, was founded by Josh Kushner, brother of Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. And Infantino, of course, we remember, gave Trump the first ever FIFA Peace Prize back in December 2025, didn't he, Nadine?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm just wondering, why did Trump speak up just a couple of days ago rather than when the FFE story first broke in late July? Because it's got all the commercial attributes that he loves. He loves a deal. So it's interesting how he kept quiet. Maybe he was on a golfing holiday or something, or sorting out his ballroom.
Yeah, maybe he was at Turnberry. It's a question a lot of people are asking, to be fair. I'm asking it as well. It came just after the US Soccer Federation publicly called for meaningful reform at FIFA. So the timing, I guess, suggests Trump may have felt Infantino's position was genuinely at risk. Whether this was requested support from Infantino or a spontaneous show of loyalty, we don't know. But does Trump's praise hold up against how a lot of fans actually feel, Nadine, or is it just separate from that?
Difficult, isn't it? I'm not entirely, because there's plenty of critics argue the World Cup under Infantino has become more commercialised and pricier for fans, not more successful in the way that matters to supporters. So I suppose, it depends on who's judging that success. And there's some irony here too. This whole crisis started because of a plan to squeeze out even more revenue on top of FIFA's already record income. So it's not like they're struggling for money. They've got huge amounts of reserves, billions of pounds or euros or however they account their money in. So I'm just wondering, where does that leave Infantino in a genuinely precarious spot. I mean, he's got the backing of the US president, but that may not carry much weight inside the sport itself. The real question now is whether UEFA, CONCACAF and the AFC follow through on boycott threats, starting with that under-20 Women's World Cup that I mentioned in just under 3 weeks' time in Poland.
Yeah, well, that story's again going to develop. It feels like it's something that we've been talking about for a long, long time, and we will be talking about for a long old time. It's so interesting.
And actually, as we're recording this, it could have changed already. So
exactly.
It's such a moving beast or feast, isn't it, of a story?
100%. And another moving feast is the transfer market. And poor Newcastle, they've really, really had it tough in this transfer window. Of course, losing their manager, Eddie Howe. But a really big story that's happened recently is Bruno Guimaraes' move to Arsenal for £75 million confirmed. He is now an Arsenal player. He will be playing under Mikel Arteta, the champions Arsenal of last season. I want to ask you firstly, Nadine, from a Newcastle perspective, was this quite a tough call to let him go like that?
Yeah, I think it's a really tough call because I think Bruno, from what I've seen of him, he was central to Newcastle's sort of overall project and ambition. However, those financial fair play pressures and the scale of the offer forced their hand, and Arsenal is demonstrating that they're willing to spend big on the right player, and Guimaraes ticks a lot of boxes.
Yeah, and when you think they've lost Tonali, Gordon and now Guimaraes, those are three big pieces of a team that won the Carabao Cup against Liverpool, if you remember. Of course, Alexander Isak scored the second goal. He's no longer there too. So, and the manager, it's a really ripped apart team. But for Arsenal, it's the complete opposite. They're just building and building and building. So this is a signing that Arsenal fans can really, really get excited about, isn't it, Nadine?
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, the Brazilian international, Bruno Guimaraes, has been one of the standout midfielders in the Premier League, and Arsenal are clearly looking to strengthen in that area. And, just a brief summary about him, his ability to control games, to break up play and contribute going forward makes him, I think, a perfect fit for Arteta's system.
100%. He's a warrior. He calls himself a warrior. Newcastle fans saw him as their Geordie warrior. But he stresses that he's very comfortable on the ball, composed, calm in possession, which, from what I've seen of him, he absolutely is. The numbers back that up. Even playing mostly in a defensive position at number 6 in Newcastle, he still managed 4 goals, 5 assists in his first season, which he then improved to 7 goals and 8 assists the following year. And across his whole career at Newcastle, it goes up to 30 goals and 25 assists in 153 Premier League appearances, despite often being used in a deeper role, which I think are great statistics. He now joins a fantastic group of midfield players with the likes of Declan Rice, Martin Zubimendi, Martin Odegaard, Mikel Merino, Miles Lewis-Skelly, of course, who was really good at the end of last season and still young and developing. So it's a great depth of options, and my question would be where he actually slots in.
Yeah, well, he's played lots of different roles, hasn't he, throughout his career, Bruno? But I'm going to push it back to you. Is he going to be in the number 6 or number 8 position? Because he did both, didn't he, at Newcastle?
It's difficult to say. He's comfortable in both for sure. He's been fairly open that his heart leans towards playing in the number 8 position. Back in 2022, when Eddie Howe was using him as that deep lying 6 at Newcastle, Bruno did say that although the number 8 role was his real preference, he understood that the 6 was what the team needed from him at the time. I would say in this Arsenal setup, though, that generally they'll play with 2 8s. I see Rice and Guimaraes being the main 2 in that midfield, and then Zubimendi being a bit deeper. But of course, at the end of last season, that wasn't the case. Zubimendi was pushed to the bench. Lewis-Skelly played, Rice played, Odegaard played. So I could see a bit of rotation. I think it'll depend on the game. I think when they're playing a perhaps weaker or lesser team, if you like, that sits back, Guimaraes will play in a more advanced position. But perhaps when they're playing another big 6 side, either Rice or Guimaraes might just play that little bit deeper. So that'll be really interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? When you think about when he was at Newcastle, it just shows how he's a real team player because he wanted Newcastle to win more than where his position was basically told to him by his manager. So I think he sacrificed his favourite role for the team, didn't he? Although once Tonali arrived, he took over the number 6 role, if I think I'm right. Yes. And then Bruno moved into his preferred number 8 spot. So that willingness to play wherever the team needs him is exactly the kind of adaptability that Arteta values in his squad. And yeah, it's quite interesting that what you've just said, where you think he's going to play and how the team will move around him. But I know the sporting director, he's been pretty direct about, where Bruno's going to be, hasn't he?
He has. He actually, this is Andrea Berta, by the way, if you didn't know who's the sporting director. He's described Bruno Guimaraes as someone who can play both as a defensive midfielder and as a box-to-box presence. Someone who combines quality and quantity and has consistently chipped in with goals and assists. I mean, he's just relaying what we already know. He's framing that Guimaraes will help evolve Arsenal's playing style while also raising the level of competition within the squad, which he sees as essential for winning major trophies. So, I guess what I want to know, Nadine, if you've got an insight, is tactically, how could Arteta actually deploy him?
I suppose he's got a few options, hasn't he? Arsenal has full-backs who can tuck inside and cover for him if he plays in that 6 position. But yeah, the interesting idea, I think you've spoken about it, is pairing him maybe with Declan Rice, which would then allow him to use either Martin Odegaard or Eze as a pure number 10. And I suppose if Rice needs a rest or is unavailable, Arteta even has the option of playing both Rice and Odegaard in the 8 position, with Bruno anchoring things at 6. I mean, does that make sense to you?
Yeah. It certainly does. And Rice showed last season he can do a bit of everything in midfield. But last season, when you add up the midfield minutes, Arsenal was leaning far too heavily on Rice and Zubimendi, who both played more than 4,000 minutes. So bringing in someone of Guimaraes' quality gives Arteta the genuine rotation options. You've got to remember the Champions League, of course, as well. You'd like to think that's going to be their priority this season. Of course, they want to defend their title. But playing all these competitions with games coming thick and fast, especially in that Christmas period, it's crucial that you have a big squad, because injuries do happen. We see injuries happen more and more in football now. But it certainly does feel like one of those transfers, Nadine, that could define a title race.
Yeah, it really could, because Arsenal landing him, I think, sends a statement, doesn't it, to their rivals, not only in the domestic competitions, to the Premier League, but also to the rest of Europe. I'm just wondering, does that now change your opinion on Xabi Alonso's Chelsea being in the running to take the title? Because we thought Arsenal, obviously they did incredibly well last season, but you said in an earlier episode, was it the last one or the week before that Alonso and Chelsea, because of his style of play and the signings that he'd put his name to, could actually be title challengers. But would you change that opinion now that you know that Bruno is going to Arsenal?
I wouldn't change my opinion. I think both are title challengers. This transfer definitely helps Arsenal, but I still see Chelsea as a contender. They don't have any other competitions to play in, no Europe, which gives them a real clear vision and charge at the Premier League, which all these other clubs that we discuss, Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United, they have Champions League football to play. And so, for that reason, I just think Chelsea have to be seen as contenders. A lot of people would disagree with me because it is such a new setup, lots of new players, etc. And Arsenal probably the safer bet, if you like. But I do like Chelsea, and I just think because they don't have that European football, they have a chance. But let's put that to one side for now. Let's head to Spain, where there's been a huge development regarding one of the game's brightest stars, Vinicius Jr. And we spoke so much about the man at the World Cup for how brilliant he was, especially during the group stages. At Brazil, he really carried that team and pushed them forward. And his previous contract at Real Madrid was signed back in October 2023, running through to 2027. And since that first signing, his stock has risen so much. He scored in the 2024 Champions League final and finished runner-up for the Ballon d'Or that year. If you remember, that was at Wembley against Borussia Dortmund. And Madrid actually opened talks quite early, back in February 2025, because some Saudi clubs were actually dangling an enormous salary in front of him. I mean, the wages they offer are crazy. It was something in the range of 10 times the amount Madrid were paying at the time.
Crazy.
And that interest never turned into an actual approach, and Vinicius wasn't especially tempted anyway, which is quite refreshing to see given a lot of players turning their heads towards the larger lump sums. But he's finally agreed a 6-year extension that keeps him at Real Madrid until June 2032. He was obviously entering the final year of his old deal, and there had been real interest from Arsenal, but Vinicius and Real Madrid came to terms and it's now official. Nadine, so Vinicius staying at Real Madrid with a new long-term contract is quite significant, isn't it?
Wow, yes, it's massive, isn't it? There's been ongoing speculation about interest from elsewhere, especially from Arsenal. But this new deal effectively shuts the door on that. It's fait accompli. Real Madrid see him as the face of their future alongside players like Jude Bellingham.
Yeah, and what do you think of it from Vinicius' perspective? He must be getting a lot of money.
Well, yes, but I suppose for him, I mean, he's already got a lot of money. So, you know, yes, he's on an even bigger deal now, but I suppose it's about stability and legacy for him. He's already achieved so much, hasn't he, at Real Madrid, but he's still improving. And I think that contract signals his commitment to continuing that journey and becoming one of the club's all-time greats. I think that's really his ambition. And I saw he posted on Instagram saying that 8 years at the Bernabeu already felt too short for him. And now he's looking for 6 more years and then forever. And the club echoed that sentiment in their own statement, calling him one of the most important players in one of the most successful eras in the club's history. But it wasn't certain, though, was it, that he would sign, particularly after a disagreement over bonus terms in the offer stalled talks around May 2025. So over a year ago, this has been brewing and bubbling up. And by last summer, his camp decided to just wait and see how the following season went before restarting talks. And that season, if you remember, was pretty rough for him. He lost his automatic starting spot under manager Alonso. And even after a heated exchange with a coach, meant that I think he was substituted, wasn't he, in the Clasico match between Barcelona and Real Madrid, or one of the games in the Clasico matches. And by January, you know, it was pretty hostile for him in the stadium. He was getting whistled by his own fans. So, you know, that could have jeopardised him wanting to stay there. But, you know, things turned around, didn't they?
Things definitely turn around, and Real Madrid, with the stature of the club, things do happen like that, and they were going for a really difficult time actually, Real Madrid, under Xabi Alonso, and in the media people were turning towards the superstars, scapegoating them, the likes of Vinicius, Bellingham, and that does happen. But things did improve once Alvaro Arbeloa took over, and actually he's now the Fulham manager, but at the time he was the interim boss and made rebuilding his relationship with Vinicius an absolute priority. But Vinicius's representatives still went rushing into new talks. They pushed things back again until after this summer's World Cup, where Brazil were knocked out by Norway in the round of 16. But after returning from his post-World Cup break, Madrid presented an offer worth roughly €22 million a year, an increase from an earlier €20 million proposal his camp had already rejected. Even that fell well short of the €30 million salary his side was reportedly seeking. His representatives felt it didn't reflect his standing at the club or the fact that this would be the richest contract of his career. Then in a meeting this week, Madrid agreed to go even higher despite previously insisting they wouldn't move further. And in the end, of course, as we know, Vinicius accepted the improved offer and the club confirmed the extension through to 2032. Let's not forget, of course, that over his time there he's scored 128 goals in 375 appearances. That's nearly a goal every 3 games. Across all competitions, plus 13 goals and 54 caps for Brazil, and has helped the club win 2 Champions Leagues, 3 La Liga titles and a Copa del Rey. I mean, this new deal sends a message to other clubs, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, wow, just that roll call as you're going through his sort of history was pretty impressive. But yeah, definitely, Real Madrid is making it very clear that they're not a selling club when it comes to their superstars. And obviously we heard that Arsenal was seriously assessing whether they could afford a move that size. And Madrid reportedly viewed Arsenal as the only realistic destination if Vinicius Jr. did leave. And ultimately it was always going to come down to what Vinicius himself wanted. And he appears comfortable with the idea that Jose Mourinho will be in charge at the club, who returns as head coach this season. So he fully knew those facts when he put his signature to this new deal. But yeah, just want to talk about Jose actually with you to get your thoughts on it. You know, do you think Jose, the special one, I don't think he named himself that, but that's what he's known as, is the right fit for Real Madrid? And how do you think the likes of Vinicius Jr. and Jude Bellingham will get on with him? You know, what do you think he's going to get out of them?
Well, what's really interesting is that the 2024 Champions League final, after Real Madrid beat Dortmund 2-0 at Wembley, Mourinho was actually working as a pundit that day, and when all the families came onto the pitch, there was actually a little clip of Jude Bellingham running over to Jose Mourinho and saying to him, "Can my mum get a photo of you? She's fancied you for years." And they had a little giggle and exchange about that. So who knows, maybe that's a little bonus for Mourinho, the Bellingham family. But back to the football side of things, Jose is an ego manager, and that's exactly what Real Madrid need. It's why Zinedine Zidane was so good, because he's got so much prestige, he's done it all, he's very well respected. Whereas someone like Arbeloa, for example, Arbeloa should I say, you know, I'm not suggesting he's not a bad tactician, but he doesn't have that same pedigree that Jose Mourinho has, and I think all the players will respect him. I think it's less about tactics sometimes at Real Madrid and just allowing the big talents to shine. The Mbappes, the Viniciuses, the Bellinghams. These are big egos, these are big players, and you've just got to let all of them shine and work together. And if he can, I think they'll be an unstoppable force. But we've seen, of course, last season under Alonso, it didn't quite work out, and once Vinicius was getting taken off the pitch and flailing his arms in the air, throwing water bottles across the bench, things got a bit messy. So I see it working because I know what Mourinho's like. He likes the pressure, he likes the egos, he likes dealing with it, and it'll be really interesting to see. What are your thoughts, Nadine?
Yeah, it means we've definitely got to go to a Classico match then, isn't it? I think this is the season to do it. We'll have to carve some time out of our diaries. Whether we'll get there is another thing. But actually, yeah, Jose, you're right. He's managed some of the biggest clubs, very, very successful at Chelsea. Apparently was meant to take over from Alex Ferguson at Man United, and then put the call in to say that he'd changed his mind. I mean, the guy creates so many column inches, doesn't he, when it comes to selling, well, old newspapers as they are now, but whether you're reading your stuff digitally or whatever, he certainly courts a lot of publicity and press, doesn't he? And by the way, Jose's 3-part documentary on Netflix, not that I work for them, has just come out. I haven't watched it yet. It's on the to-do list, but by all accounts, I've been advised to take my time over it because it's not a binge watch all in one go, because I've been told it's very heavy going. Have you seen it yet, James?
I haven't, but I can't wait to watch. And we, of course, watched the Tottenham Hotspur All or Nothing documentary when Jose Mourinho was around at the time, so we discovered a lot about him there.
Yeah.
But this is a different kettle of fish, really, so I'm so excited. But let's leave that one as well, and let's talk about one of the most surprising moves of the window, Mohamed Salah heading to Turkey. Nadine, this has caught a lot of people off guard. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it's a huge moment, isn't it, both for Salah and for Turkish football. I mean, Salah's been synonymous with Liverpool and the Premier League for so many years. So to see him make this move is quite extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, why do you think now?
I suppose there are a few factors, aren't there? Financial incentives will certainly play a role, but also timing. Salah's achieved everything at Liverpool, the Champions League, Premier League, individual accolades, and this could be about a new challenge and a different chapter in his career. And I suppose, I think he worked better under the previous manager at Liverpool. I don't think he was happy under the last regime, which obviously has changed now. But I think I get that sense that Jurgen and Salah had a lot more going for them, understood each other better than the last manager did.
Yeah, and what do you think this means for Turkish football?
Well, I think it's a massive boost, isn't it? I mean, I don't know a lot about Turkish football. I think you're probably in a better position than me. Obviously, I read the general headlines, but signing a player of Salah's sort of global profile elevates the league's visibility. So I suppose that will encourage me to want to seek out games that he's playing in. And I think it's going to increase the appeal overnight, not just for me, but for many others. So I think it's not just a transfer. This really is a statement that, Turkish football is going somewhere, although the Turkish national side didn't do so well in the World Cup. But, when I'm watching Champions League football, I will always seek out the Turkish games because they always bring that excitement and passion to the game. So, let's see what happens with Salah.
Yeah, it really does feel like now the landscape of football on and off the pitch is really shifting.
Yes, I suppose whether it's sort of governance battles at FIFA, big money Premier League moves, contract commitments in Spain, or superstar transfers to emerging leagues, football is evolving rapidly, and it always has done, hasn't it?
It always has done. And I'd actually just want to talk about a development that's taken place back at Liverpool. We were just discussing Salah's move away. There's been a consortium that includes Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, which has moved further along in talks to acquire roughly a 30% stake in Liverpool. The group, fronted by the businessman Amit Bhatia, son-in-law of billionaire Lakshmi Mittal and a former QPR director and co-owner for 18 years, and it also features Facebook co-founder Eduardo Saverin. Liverpool's American owners, Fenway Sports Group, which everyone calls FSG for short, confirmed last month that the group had expressed interest in a strategic minority investment in the club. What do you make of this?
Well, let's not forget, when I last looked, Bezos is the world's fourth richest person. We could have done some of that money at QPR, actually. So, yes, it's funny how you mentioned QPR, but we haven't had much glory, have we? Unlike Liverpool. And Forbes actually estimated Bezos' net worth, wait for this one, he's sitting down, $256 billion. And that's the equivalent of around, depending on exchange rates, £190 billion. A lot of dosh, in other words. And the Fenway Sports Group, or FSG, they bought Liverpool for £300 million 16 years ago in 2010 and have previously sold a minority stake to sports investment firm Dynasty Equity. And the potential deal, this new one, comes as a strong financial moment for the club. Liverpool is the Premier League's top earner, according to Deloitte, for the first time, and they posted record revenues of £703 million for the 2024-2025 season. So, rosy financial figures there.
Yeah, this would mark Bezos' first real move into sports ownership. He stepped down as Amazon's CEO in 2021, though he still holds an 8% stake in the company and also owns the Washington Post and aerospace firm Blue Origin. I do hope that when he does take over, or if he does, it doesn't mean that Liverpool will then be able to get a transfer that comes the next day, like Amazon Prime does. But a stake in Liverpool now looks set to be in his entry point into sports ownership if the deal does go ahead, doesn't it, Nadine?
Very good, James. Yes, highly amusing. And I like the fact you're wearing a hat this week as well. I hadn't mentioned that before. Anyway, and if the deal does go ahead, the proposed sale of around 30% would mean that the Fenway Sports Group, I like to say it in its full glory, FSG, I know you like to call it like that, would receive £1.35 billion, with the club valued at around £4.5 billion. And actually, when you do the maths, that's 13 times what it was worth in 2010 when the FSG Group brought it. But I don't think fans should expect a spending spree in the transfer market. I don't think it's going to happen next day, unlike Amazon Prime.
Yeah, because of course the Premier League operates under such strict squad cost ratio rules now, and those rules tie what a club can spend directly to the income it actually generates through things like commercial deals, not to how wealthy an owner actually happens to be. And under this system, having one of the richest people in the world attached to the club doesn't automatically transfer into bigger fees or splashier signings, which of course I think is a good thing, because I don't want Liverpool to sign any more players. They're of course Everton's biggest rival, but Liverpool would still need to earn that spending power through revenue. And all these stories we've covered will definitely be keeping a closer eye on them in the weeks ahead. But that's all for today's episode of the Football Fan Fanatics Podcast. To make sure all our episodes drop right into your feed, you can follow our show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen online. To find out more about us, please visit our website, footballfanfanatics.com. And you can also watch us on our Football Fan Fanatics YouTube channel too. We've compiled a guest list of contributors who will be appearing on the show in the coming weeks. But if you're connected with football and you would like to appear on the podcast, please get in contact. Details are on the website. Thanks again, and see you next time.
Bye.